Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. Very lucky to be joined by Pete and James, and we'll be taking you through how you might engage the goalkeeper within your sessions. We are not here as goalkeeper specialists. We're all here as those, coaches that have maybe had to haven't had the luxury of having an MDT, haven't had the luxury of having a goalkeeper coach, and we've had to really ensure that when we're coaching the outfielders, that we're really ensuring that we're focusing as well as the goalkeepers, because there's nothing worse than taking a training session and your goalkeeper goes, "What about me? You've forgotten about me in a practice." And I'll be honest, that's happened to me before when I've been early in my coaching career. But now probably one of the ones I really focus the most on within my sessions are the goalkeeper, because they're so influential. Tonight, hopefully, Pete, James and I will take you through some of the out of possession roles of the goalkeeper. So how they defend the space, how they defend the area, what it looks like, what it is. Then we're going to hopefully bring to life how you might be able to observe it with your own goalkeepers before we go into some, game-based practices where we're going to look to incorporate the goalkeeper to support them with that defending the space and the defending the area element. So we're going to jump into the first theme now, which is hopefully going to bring to life what defending the space and defending the area is.
When we talk about goalkeepers nowadays, we always talk about the goalkeeper in possession, about how they help the team to play out. But I think there's also those really key pieces about if the game is now played, in a high pressing mode. A lot of teams like to press high up. Now, if you're going to press high up, one of the things you have to do is you've got to have all your units together, and they've got to be close together. And that includes your goalkeeper. So if a team wants to play over the top, they find it difficult because there's no space for them to play over the top.
I'm very much aware that keepers that maybe don't have a lot of experience trying the position out for a while might not necessarily defend that space. They might feel like their position is in goal, therefore they stay in goal.
Yep.
And it's trying to get them out of that. And then another kind of thing that comes to mind is I always think about the last 10 to 15 minutes in a game when I'm watching, especially when I'm watching Newcastle play, is if you're chasing a lead, if you're chasing for a goal and you're putting a lot of pressure on, that leads to lots of opportunity. That leads to lots of opportunities where the ball is constantly being thrown into the box. So that defending the area becomes really, really important, because I think nothing gives the team more confidence than a keeper that's commanding and can come and actually collect that ball and just reduce the threat, reduce the pressure off their team.
Here at the FA, we've kind of got our out of possession, I say, like how we play model. So this brings it to life a little bit here. So kind of that big blue area is that where we're relying on the goalkeeper to defend the space. Support, obviously, we now rely very much on our goalkeepers to almost be an outfielder in possession. We see it as well a lot in the female game. We've got brilliant goalkeepers like Hannah Hampton, who started her life as an outfielder. She was a number 9. So her ability to support in open play in and out of possession has been really, really key, I think, to some of Chelsea's success. And then obviously now she's getting good opportunities for England in the first team, and then defending the area. So now we're starting to look at dealing with balls into the box. And then defending the goal. Just basically, the game's all about scoring goals and stopping goals. So how are we going to stop them? James, you're gonna take us through a little bit around this, aren't you? Around that kind of position, decision, and action bit of it.
Obviously, defending that space, having keepers like willing to play higher up and defend that space can be a great advantage for teams. I think Pete mentioned from an in possession point of view, it's great because it's an outlet. Allowing the ball to be recycled if it needs to be. But from an out of possession, which is the focus of tonight, it kind of cuts out the threat from teams who like to play over and through, to help us start to support our players through that. And I'm very much looking at this from a younger age group. But if we start considering the position, the decision, and the actions that they might have to take, and there's quite a lot when you start to break it down around what they have to consider. So if we go straight into this, the position, and start to think about the considerations that a keeper might have to make around the positioning that they have, if you start to think about everything that a keeper needs to think about where they position themselves. So I always start with my goalkeepers, and when I talk to them, I say, what do you see? That helps you determine what position you're going to take up on the pitch. So, for example, who's got the ball? Do we have the ball, or do they have the ball? On what position on the pitch is the ball located? So is it their defensive third, the mid third, or our attacking third? Is there any pressure on the ball? Because if the ball is in the middle third, they have it. There's no pressure, and there's a potential for a long range shot. That's going to start me thinking about the position I take. And when I work with the young goalkeepers, like I said, they can be quite nervous about doing some of this stuff because they're worried about making a mistake. They're worried about getting the position wrong and the ball going over the head or bouncing before them and going over there because it's quite a pressured position. So I kind of like to give them markers on the pitch to use to help them consider how am I positioned. Now, they're not set in stone, but it's just to help to start them to get to think about where they could stand. So if you've got the pitch markings, we can start to think, all right, if the ball is in the middle of the pitch, they've got it, and there's no pressure on it, and you think they can shoot, then you might probably want to be between the 6-yard box and the penalty spot. If there's pressure on the ball, you might actually just stand on the penalty spot or a little bit further forward. If they're further back, it might be to the edge of the box. I use like an arc analogy. So you want to stay central to the goal, but as the ball shifts left to right, you arc around so that you're in line with the ball and the center of the goal. Those are some of the considerations you might have when you're thinking about the position to take up. We then start to think about the decision. So how do we decide, do I go and engage or do I retreat? And again, I think on that side of things, I go back to what are you seeing? What can you see? What's happening in the game? So if, for example, our team have the ball and I can see someone coming in to make a tackle, they're under pressure from the opposition and it looks like there's a chance they might lose it. And if they lose it and there's a chance for a quick shot, I might be thinking now I need to actually readjust my position. I might retreat. If, however, the picture is slightly different and I'm looking at, there is a bit of pressure on, there's no threat from a shot, but I can see a gap that there's a potential for the ball to be played through. I can see runners from the opposition. That ball is then played through and I'm thinking about, okay, what type of pass has been made? Is it in the air? Is it on the ground? What's the pace like? I'll be looking at little cues and signals from the person in possession. When they lift the head and they're scanning to see where the runs are, when they drop the head and it looks like they're going to hit the ball, all these fine details you can start to talk to the coaches about to say, right, this is going to help me decide, do I go in, do I not go in? And then the final one is that action where we need to decide, how am I going to engage? The ball has been played through. I've decided I'm going to engage and try and collect the ball. I have to think about my capabilities. Can I accelerate? Am I quick? And then as that ball is being played through, am I intercepting, possibly taking a touch and then setting up an attack? Or is it a case of actually it's going to be almost like a 50-50 and I have to block, or I might have to actually go in and make a challenge? And these are all outside of the area. So all these like skillful actions, our players need these opportunities to practice them. There's a lot going on for a keeper to explore. And I think that's the key thing. You have to give them opportunities to just explore all of this. There's no set in stone rules for it. It's just give them the opportunity and build their confidence in doing it. And I think that's one of the key things I've found with young players is we have to reassure them and help build their confidence because in the early stages, they're going to make mistakes. I think those are some of the considerations I'd have around defending the space. And I think this slide sums it up neatly in terms of this. If you can see, there's so many different actions going on. There's so many considerations, so much thinking happening around that position, decision, and action.
James has taken us really well through defend the space and that position, decision and action element. So you're up now to take us through to those 3 points, but around that defending the area.
Again, this has come on a lot recently because the game's changed so much, because it used to be that players would take crosses from quite deep. So, wingers would run down the wing, get to the byline, cross it in, and goalkeeper would come out and, take a big high cross and that sort of stuff, or balls just pumped into the area. But we're now starting to find, as you see in the picture here, we're starting to see things like cutbacks and some of those things that, inbox crosses. Like James said earlier, everything is based around the ball. Where's the ball? was it coming from? How are you gonna defend it if it's zipped across low across the floor? How are you gonna deal with it if it's whipped at that horrible height around waist height? You know, that you see sometimes you see keepers coming out, but also that piece that we talked about earlier, when the ball's being played in over the top, are you're still defending the area there, because you might have to be very quick and be out to maybe go to collect the ball into your area. Your decision making is really crucial. Are you going to affect the cross, and how might you affect the cross? Because again, depending on your position, you're saying to the crosser, well, what are you going to do if I stand here? Because then they might, it's that cat and mouse, isn't it? They might go, well, if you come out, I'm going to try and whip one in. You know, if you stay on your goal, I'm going to stand it up at the back post, and then the goalkeeper's going to get round to the back post there. And it's kind of like, what are your actions? You know, what kind of actions are you going to make? Looking at the images, you know, the high crosses that are coming in, the punches that we talked about. If you look at some of those pictures, you'll see some of those actions that the goalkeepers have to now partake in. I mean, even the one where the goalkeepers are having to come and take things, you know, in those crowded areas, you know, and they've got to be brave there, because you're coming through a crowd of players, and the communication's got to be nice and loud, so that the players know either to get out of the way, or sometimes players are going to get hit because the keeper's made a decision to come and get the ball.
Please have a look at this video. This is around defending the space. What are you seeing around their positioning? What are you seeing around their communication, their decision making, their action? And just try to see if there's any common themes that you're seeing as you're watching this video. Hopefully you could see there we had a real mix of the male game, the female game, but also some youth clips as well, just to bring it to life. And I just want to bring you to life now a little bit. This is stuff that really gets me excited. So some of that, the insight stuff. So we've already spoken about modern trends of the game, and obviously now we see backlines playing a lot higher. So all I've got here is Ederson at Man City on the left, Pickford of Everton in the middle, and Alisson of Liverpool on the far right. And you can see here I've kind of just drawn up what the average positions look like for the team. And if you draw your attention to the Man City box, you'll see just how high that backline is. So that space that Ederson is probably expected to cover in behind is really, really big. Something then you obviously need to think about as well is just how big do you want that gap to be between your backline and your goalkeeper, especially if they're young and going into a bigger format, that's more space to cover. If you then compare that to Jordan Pickford, and obviously he has to defend the space ever such a lot. It looks a little bit different for him because of maybe the capabilities of the centre-backs in front of him. So I think James Tarkowski's a brilliant centre-back, but he's not very well known for his pace. So obviously in terms of then having to defend balls in behind, James Tarkowski having to turn and run back towards his own goal, Michael Keane having to do that, Jared Branthwaite. That's why Pickford is so brilliant at what he does. Obviously, if you're pressing from the front, your backline has to be higher anyway to reduce kind of gaps between the units. So again, all of those opportunities there that Alisson is getting to kind of be involved in those turnovers of possession, or maybe having to defend the space for a 1v1 or a player that gets thread through. So just a really nice graphic there just to show top level of the game, just how often it's happening. Do you ask your goalkeeper to be brave and command that space outside their area? Do you ask your defenders to play a high line? So then you're asking your goalkeeper to maybe defend that area a little bit more. And what's the communication like? Just going to play again for everyone on the call, a nice video again, just around defending the area, what it looks like, and how it can look different maybe at different ages and stages. Hopefully, anyway, you saw a really good range of, different situations where goalkeepers had to defend the area. So this graphic is just something I've put together from the WSL this season, and just the range of crosses, where they come from. They come from deep, they come from wide areas, they come from those cutback areas that you've spoken about. What we need to give is obviously our players loads and loads of opportunity, loads of frequency to defend crosses from different areas within training, within practice, because then come game day, they then should be ready to deal with whatever they're faced with. And I'm just conscious of time, so I'm just going to really quickly, we're going to, hopefully now we've obviously brought to life, hopefully, what that defending the space and defending area are. That kind of before, during and after, what you need to consider with your goalkeepers, some clips to bring it to life and some best practice. And now we actually want to just bring to life for you a couple of practices that will hopefully get you guys thinking about what it could look like for your players.
The session that I've kind of presenting tonight is one I've stolen from the 6-week session program around. It's an out of possession session, but it's called No Going Back. The condition in the middle is the players must play sideways or forwards. They can play backwards, but it must be to their keeper. So you can reinforce that in possession aspect for the keeper to get on the ball, and then their distribution. But the rule will also allow or encourage the players in the middle, if they can't go to their teammates backwards, can they play forwards and through? And what you can say is you can shoot from the middle. So the keeper now has to think about my position, because if I can shoot from the middle, I need to make sure I can't get lobbed. But at the same time, they get extra points if the ball can be played through into the final third for a player to run onto. So the goal is worth maybe 2 or 3 instead of 1, encouraging that keeper to potentially look for those moments of defending the space. The key with this practice is trying to give length. You need the length to allow that to happen, because obviously, if you play short, it's going to be really easy to defend that space. But that's kind of the idea I had around encouraging those through balls, so that the keeper can get lots of repetition of defending the space and making those decisions.
How would you encourage the goal? So this one here, that one there where that keeper has gone. So I'll just pause it there. It's a perfect moment. How would you encourage them to defend the space at the right time?
If you've got in your head you really want to support the keeper, you might position yourself just behind them, just in earshot. Don't get on top of them, but just in earshot, and ask them to say, like, what are you seeing now? What are you thinking now? Yeah, and get insight from them in terms of what they're seeing. And then if they make a decision and they go and challenge for the ball, if they don't get success, you don't have to go into all right, why did you got this wrong and all that kind of stuff. You've got to build their confidence. You just go again, and then go again and go again, and just keep the repetitions, the opportunities happening. But when it does get success, you praise it. You're in there straight away, and you tell them why. Your positioning was great. It was great. You picked up on that ball. You knew he was going to play that pass. You were ready for it. You reacted. It was brilliant. Tell them everything that was great about it.
I'll just finish it on a practice that I was looking at. That's probably more for kind of like open age. So really quickly, just wanted to show this. This is now a really good clip of Ortega. So it'll show a different angle. He was defending the space. He then recognised that he wasn't actually in a good position to defend the space. So he then started to backpedal and get himself set, ready for the shot or cross. And he does really, really well. The practice I've put together here is if you're working kind of 9v9, 11v11 game. So all I've got is like a game within a game going on. So I'm kind of looking here at the midfield third, and it's quite wide because I obviously want to encourage, the team that is in possession, the yellows, to keep the ball. Now, if I wanted there to be more transitional moments, I might actually narrow off the practice a little bit. And all it is here, the yellows basically try and finish into the mini goal. They finish into the mini goal. They now go the other way to finish it in the other mini goal. At that same time, blues are looking to win the ball. as soon as the Blues win the ball on that transitional moment, so linked to that clip we've just seen of Leighton Orient, they need to try and look to get behind, beat the offside trap, and go 1v1 versus the keeper. So now the keeper's got to adjust really, really quickly to come and defend the space, and then obviously start up an attack. So out of possession into transition into now in possession, can I now start an attack for my team? So hopefully it's giving loads of opportunity for the outfielders to work on some of their passing patterns, their relationship building, but also then it's about our goalkeepers being prepared for these moments where a transitional moment will happen, a turnover happens, and they've got to be really brave at recognising the moment to defend the space. So this clip here, you can see keeper couldn't go and defend the space because of how quickly this forward player's got onto the ball. So now the goalkeeper needs to think about retreating and now thinking about defending the area. So now making the right choice to come and claim it, parry it, whatever it needs to defend it. Okay, so recognise, right, I can't defend the space right now. So now what I'm going to think about is defending my area. Hopefully there you've seen that we've taken you on a little bit of a journey in terms of what it looks like in James's practice. So working with like younger players into them Pete's where we're going a bit more like wide EP, players going through growth and maturation. And then this one where we're looking at a little bit more maybe that PDP into open age. Thank you for joining us and have a really good rest of your evening. Take care, everyone.